Jessi Colter has always been described as the quiet force behind the storm. Unlike her husband, Waylon Jennings, who was known for his loud, outlaw lifestyle, Jessi carried herself with a kind of calm strength that never needed to shout. People often painted her as the saint beside the sinner, the gospel singer standing next to the leather-clad outlaw. But behind those labels was a woman with her own story, her own pain, and her own secrets. At 82 years old, she began hinting that not everything about her life had been told. One day, during what seemed like a normal afternoon, she leaned in close and whispered, "He left something under the floorboards. I never told a soul." That single sentence silenced the room. It was not just about music, fame, or gossip. It suggested something hidden, something buried for more than 40 years. To understand what Jessi meant, you have to go back to her roots before she became the outlaw's muse. Born Miriam Johnson, she was a preacher's daughter from Phoenix, Arizona. Raised in a house filled with hymns and discipline, Jessi learned early how to balance faith with determination. She dreamed of music that went beyond the church pews, a voice that could echo far beyond Sunday services. Her journey from Miriam Johnson to Jessi Colter was filled with moments of love, heartbreak, resilience, and secrets that shaped not only her career but her entire life. Before the world knew her as Jessi Colter, she was Miriam Johnson, a young woman who grew up with a piano, a strong faith, and a clear dream. Her earliest songs were gospel pieces, filled with the spirit of church life. But her heart longed for music that would reach people outside the walls of worship. Her first big love in the music world was not Waylon Jennings. It was guitarist Duane Eddy, one of the most famous rockabilly musicians of his time. Miriam and Duane married young, traveling the country as he toured and performed. For Jessi, this was her first real introduction to the realities of the music business. Life on the road showed her both the glamour and the hardships that came with fame. She was still figuring out who she was as an artist, and at the same time she was trying to make a marriage work under difficult circumstances. By the early 1970s, their marriage had ended, and Miriam found herself at a crossroads. She was no longer the preacher's daughter who only played church music, nor was she simply the wife of a famous guitarist. She needed to stand on her own, and that is when Jessi Colter was truly born. Her 1975 album, I'm Jessi Colter, caught attention in Nashville, proving she had the voice and songwriting power to make it in the male-dominated world of country music. For a moment, it looked like the spotlight was all hers, and then Waylon Jennings walked into her life. Waylon Jennings was not the kind of man who entered quietly. By the time Jessi met him, he was already a rising outlaw star in country music, known for his deep voice, rebellious nature, and rough edges. Waylon was charm and danger rolled into one. To some, he was magnetic. To others, he was trouble. Jessi saw both. She noticed the whiskey, the pills, the unpredictable temper, and the disappearing acts that could last for days. But she also saw the poet behind the outlaw image, the man who carried wounds from his past, who was haunted by pain he rarely spoke about. Loving Waylon was never simple. Their relationship was a storm, filled with breakups, reunions, arguments, and passion. Jessi stayed, not because she was weak or afraid, but because she believed her love could outlast Waylon's demons. She believed in the man beneath the leather jacket and addictions, the dreamer who wanted more than just chaos. Their love became legendary in country music circles, but it was not without a cost. Jessi's career often stood in Waylon's shadow, her identity tied to being Waylon's wife, instead of celebrated as an artist in her own right. Still, she continued, balancing the role of partner, mother, and performer while carrying burdens that most of the world never saw. But behind the music and the fame, there were secrets, moments Jessi never spoke of until much later, that revealed just how heavy that love really was. By the mid-1970s, Jessi Colter had achieved her own breakthrough with the hit single, I'm Not Lisa. The song played everywhere, on radios, jukeboxes, and in smoky bars across America. It made her a household name, but behind the success, Jessi was struggling with feelings of invisibility. While the world celebrated Waylon as a larger-than-life outlaw, Jessi was often reduced to his sidekick. Even though she had talent, audiences and industry insiders often introduced her as Waylon's wife, instead of recognizing her as an artist who had worked tirelessly to build her career. Friends began to notice cracks in her shine. Her smile sometimes looked strained, her voice softer, her presence dimmer. She denied any abuse, insisting that Waylon never raised a hand against her. But she carried emotional bruises that no one could see. There was one night in Houston in 1978 that Jessi wrote about in her journal, but never spoke of publicly until much later. She described how Waylon looked through her as if she didn't exist, as if she were invisible. The moment shook her deeply, leaving a scar that could not be erased. By then, Waylon's drug use was spiraling. Cocaine had stopped being a habit and had become a controlling force. He lived in paranoia, muttering about people in the walls or vans following the tour bus. To the public, he was a country music god. To Jessi, he was a man breaking apart. And while she prayed and hoped for healing, she also carried secrets, moments that connected back to things Waylon made her promise to never speak about. The chaos in their marriage was not just about drugs or fame. It was about the secrets that piled up over time. In 1981, in a motel outside Memphis, Jessi faced one of the darkest moments of their relationship. Waylon, exhausted and consumed by addiction, turned on her, not with violence but with cruel words that cut deeply. Jessi walked out that night, leaving him behind, unsure if she would ever return. When she came back the next morning, Waylon was gone. The only thing left was a smashed bathroom mirror and a small wooden box on the nightstand. Jessi did not open it, not for 30 years. When she finally did, her life changed forever. That box was just one piece of the mystery surrounding their marriage. There were also tapes, recordings Waylon made in moments of vulnerability, confessing things in his raw, broken voice. One such tape, labeled Tombstone, revealed a secret about something that happened in 1974. Jessi kept it hidden, locking it away in a safety deposit box with the wooden box and a faded photograph of Waylon with a stranger outside a church. On the back of the photo, a chilling note was written, "Don't forget what we did." Jessi never spoke publicly about what these clues meant, but they weighed on her throughout her life. When asked about the heaviest burden she ever carried, she once answered simply, "There's a reason I sing to God more than people now. Some things only heaven can forgive." By the late 1980s, Waylon Jennings was fighting his way towards sobriety, though his past haunted him. During one quiet evening at the piano, he stopped Jessi mid-song and whispered, "Do you remember Tucson?" She froze, knowing exactly what he meant. It was a secret they had promised never to reveal. For decades, whispers in the music industry hinted that Waylon had written a song about that hidden chapter, known only as the fifth verse. Rumors said it was either a confession or a warning, and Jessi was the only person who knew the truth. Years later, an anonymous blogger posted a 20-second audio clip that sounded like Waylon but did not match any known recording. It was quickly deleted, but not before fans spread it online. The legend grew. Somewhere there was a lost song about Tucson, a grave, and a preacher's lie. Jessi never denied or confirmed it directly, but in a rare Q&A in Texas, when asked if Waylon ever recorded such a song, she answered softly, "He recorded many things he never wanted the world to hear." That single line reignited the speculation. Reporters, fans, and historians searched for the missing track, convinced that Jessi was holding on to it. Some believed she even left instructions with a historian to release certain recordings only after her death. Whether true or not, the mystery made Jessi Colter not just a country music figure, but a keeper of secrets that blurred the line between myth and reality. As Jessi grew older, she retreated more into privacy. Public appearances became rare, and interviews were almost non-existent. But one evening at a small Nashville tribute show, she surprised everyone by taking the stage. Sitting at the piano, she sang "Storms Never Last," but altered the lyrics, adding a haunting new verse. "You promised the preacher we'd never go back, but I still hear the shovel, the earth going black." The audience froze, recognizing the reference to the Tucson secret. Jessi offered no explanation, leaving the whispers louder than ever. Not long after, she released an album under her real name Miriam Johnson, titled Floorboards. It contained 10 songs, but one track, Tucson, stood out. The song described a church in the desert, a midnight burial, and a truth hidden before sunrise. Fans who heard it were stunned. It did not sound like a metaphor. It sounded like a confession. Within days, the album disappeared from the internet, erased without explanation. Only a handful of fans managed to save copies. Around the same time, renovations began at an old church outside Tucson. Some said it was just construction. Others claimed government vehicles had been spotted there. No one could confirm the truth, and Jessi never spoke about it again. Her final interviews became more cryptic, with answers like, "Some ghosts you can't bury with songs." By then, it was clear that Jessi had spent her life balancing love, music, and secrets too heavy for most people to carry. She never fully revealed what happened under the floorboards. But through her music, her silences, and her eyes, she left enough pieces for people to wonder, chase, and question long after she was gone. From the very beginning, Jessi's life was anchored in faith. As a preacher's daughter, she spent countless hours inside church walls, learning the discipline of worship music. That faith did not fade when she entered the country music world. It followed her everywhere. Even in her darkest days with Waylon, she often returned to gospel songs, not as performances but as private prayers. Friends who visited her during the height of Waylon's drug years often recalled walking into her living room to hear her quietly singing hymns at the piano, while Waylon lay passed out in another room. It was as if Jessi was fighting invisible battles through her music, begging for peace in a life that rarely gave it. Fame only deepened her reliance on faith, because with the bright lights came shadows. She often spoke about the emptiness of applause, how it could never fill the void of a troubled marriage. People expected her to live in Waylon's chaos, but Jessi lived between two worlds, the smoky haze of outlaw country nights and the still silence of gospel mornings. This balance became her survival. She once admitted in an interview, "If I hadn't had God, I wouldn't have had a song left in me." Her dual identity, Miriam Johnson the believer, and Jessi Colter the outlaw's muse, created both tension and strength. That contrast shaped everything, including the secrets she guarded. When the outlaw movement exploded in the 1970s, it was painted as a rebellion against Nashville's strict rules. Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, and Chris Christopherson became the faces of it, men who defied tradition and carved their own sound. But often forgotten is Jessi Colter, the only woman at the center of it all. Her album Wanted, The Outlaws, which included Waylon, Willie, and Tom Paul Glaser, became the first country album to go platinum. Jessi's voice on that record stood out, adding a softness that balanced the roughness of the men. She wasn't just tagging along, she was a vital piece of the puzzle. Yet the history books often left her name at the bottom of the list, as if she were a guest rather than a pioneer. Behind closed doors, Jessi sometimes struggled with this erasure. She had worked as hard as the men, had sung on stages just as bright, and had endured the same relentless touring schedule. Still, when fans lined up after shows, they mostly wanted Waylon's autograph. The men were celebrated as rebels, while Jessi was expected to smile, sing, and hold the family together. This unequal recognition didn't embitter her, it humbled her. She once said, "I didn't need the title of outlaw. I lived it every day beside Waylon." Her quiet strength may not have made headlines, but it cemented her as one of the movement's hidden pillars. Life on the road with Waylon Jennings was a storm that few could survive. The buses were filled with laughter, card games, and late-night sing-alongs, but they were also filled with tension, cocaine, and unpredictable moods. Jessi had to adapt quickly. She became not only a performer, but a stabilizer, someone who could calm a drunken argument before it exploded. Band members often recalled how she would gently pull Waylon aside, whispering a few words that could either settle him or send him storming out. Sometimes she succeeded, sometimes she didn't. On one tour, Waylon disappeared for 3 days, leaving Jessi to cover for him. She performed her sets, then took the stage again to explain that Waylon was under the weather. In truth, he was locked in a hotel room, battling paranoia brought on by drugs. Jessi's ability to keep the show going while hiding the chaos behind the curtain was nothing short of remarkable. But those years left scars. She later admitted that she lived in constant fear, not of violence, but of losing him to his addictions. She described the feeling as watching someone drown while you're chained to the same boat. Even with all that pain, she never abandoned him completely. To her, loyalty was not a choice, it was her promise. The 1980s became what Jessi quietly called the lost years. Waylon's addictions consumed nearly every part of their marriage. He could be loving one day and unreachable the next. Jessi often wrote in her journals during this time, filling pages with prayers, confessions, and cryptic notes that hinted at secrets too heavy to explain. Among her writings was a recurring phrase, "the floorboards." She never clarified what it meant, only that it was tied to something Waylon had insisted remain hidden. Friends noticed how protective she became whenever questions turned toward Tucson or certain missing dates on Waylon's touring calendar. The truth about those years remains blurry, half buried in rumor and speculation. Some insiders claimed that Jessi once confided in Willie Nelson, telling him, "There's something Waylon and I can never say out loud." Willie never repeated what she told him, but years later, when asked about it, he only smiled sadly and said, "Every outlaw has a secret. Some secrets die with them." That answer only deepened the mystery around Jessi's life. For decades, the legend of the fifth verse lingered like smoke after a fire. The idea that Waylon had recorded a hidden confession, locked away from the public, fascinated fans and terrified insiders. Jessi, as the keeper of Waylon's legacy, carried the burden of that knowledge. In 2007, during an anniversary event celebrating I'm Not Lisa, she was asked once again about the rumored tape. For the first time, she didn't deflect. Instead, she said, There are songs you hear and songs you feel. Then there are songs you're not supposed to hear at all. Her cryptic response